In January 1957, the heavy doors of the Federal House of Detention in New York City closed behind Jack and Myra Soble. For years, they had operated as a shielded, unified front for Soviet intelligence. But federal imprisonment applies a specific kind of atmospheric pressure, one designed to test the limits of ideological loyalty against the reality of an isolated cell. Jack's initial strategy was absolute obstruction. When federal agents arrived for questioning, he flatly refused to even step out of his cell to meet them. Once they finally coaxed him down, he deployed every stalling tactic available. He complained of severe, blinding headaches, and when handed an itemized list of property removed from his apartment, he insisted he couldn't read it because he'd conveniently forgotten his glasses. While waiting for those glasses, Jack went on the offensive. He looked the agents in the eye and issued a direct threat to expose their informants, declaring, "I will get your man and prove him to be a liar." Across town at the Women's House of Detention, Myra Soble played a completely different hand. FBI files note her surprisingly amiable conduct. She wanted to appear cooperative, patiently answering background questions, while steadfastly denying any knowledge of espionage, illegal activities, or Soviet handlers. But obstruction and politeness are fragile shields against an agency that already holds the receipts. The Bureau possessed the timelines, the travel records, and the operational details needed to systematically dismantle their stonewalling. 3 months of isolation in federal custody took their toll. By April 1957, their psychological armor had rusted completely through. Myra began experiencing severe emotional breakdowns. Investigators document intense crying spells and her overwhelming, self-directed guilt regarding her husband's predicament. The anxiety quickly became physical. She suffered from extreme exhaustion, deteriorating to the point where prison medical staff had to administer an electrocardiograph exam to monitor her failing health. Faced with failing bodies and fraying minds, the couple hit their breaking point. The silence they had guarded so fiercely finally gave way to a flood of information. The resulting spill was a sprint. Myra began outlining her extensive history acting as a courier for Soviet intelligence across Europe. She detailed a freezing day on the outskirts of Zurich, sitting in the back of a moving black limousine with a heavy-set Soviet official demanding intelligence reports from her and her associates. Jack began unpacking the daily friction of running a spy ring. He described a botched attempt to pay an American contact named James Martin for specific veteran organization information. The handoff failed over petty bureaucracy. The Soviets demanded a signed receipt for their accounting. Martin flatly rejected the cash, angrily telling Jack, "You will be in Russia, but I will have to answer for this." The confessions also stripped away the couple's financial cover. Jack admitted that an alleged inheritance he'd used to establish himself was actually thousands of dollars in Soviet funds. That money purchased a busy New York cafeteria, providing the ring with a perfectly mundane, bustling headquarters to conduct their clandestine meetings right out in the open. These details painted a surprising operational picture. The Soviet intelligence apparatus was a fragile network, constantly vulnerable to petty arguments, missing receipts, and human error. As the full weight of a potential life sentence settled over them, the Soble's instinct for self-preservation took over completely. Every prior loyalty became expendable. Myra initiated a high-stakes negotiation with federal agents. She offered to write a comprehensive biography documenting her entire history of espionage. But she had one absolute condition. The document had to be kept so highly secured that not even the prison warden would be allowed to read it. Meanwhile, 80 miles away in an interrogation room at the Danbury Federal Correctional Institution, Jack was making his own desperate moves. To save himself, Jack offered up the ultimate betrayal. He turned on his own brother, Dr. Robert Soble. Jack issued an ultimatum. If his brother refused a full disclosure, Jack would completely expose him. He asserted Robert was more deeply entrenched in Soviet intelligence than Jack ever was, tracing his actions back to the Communist Party in Lithuania and Germany. This Soble case strips the romance away from spycraft. When the psychological pressure reaches a true breaking point, political ideology, operational security, and even the bonds of brotherhood are readily sacrificed on the altar of survival.